Hello everybody, welcome to Oulton Park for the second event of the season for the 2026 British GT Championship. We arrive in the northwest of the country a little bit later in the season than at one point was tradition, the second event of the year this year after it all kicked off at the Silverstone 500 a few weeks ago. Delighted to say we have got some glorious weather, much the same as Saturday, except we expect it to be warmer as we go through the day. Ambient temperature in the low 20s already, and that track temperature will keep on climbing as we move through the day's activities, which will feature a little bit later on 2 60-minute races, rounds 2 and 3 of the British GT Championship. Well, first kicks off with their 15-minute morning warm-up session, a last opportunity for the teams and drivers to dial themselves in around what is one of their absolute favourite racetracks, and with good reason. It's incredibly challenging, it's technically demanding, it's perhaps surprisingly quick, a very high average speed, particularly through sectors 1 and 3, with the 2 technical chicanes at Britons and Hislops to slow the cars down through the middle part of the nearly 2.7-mile circuit. It's a venue that has hosted British GT pretty much since its inception, and over the years has produced some fascinating racing, and we're hoping to deliver some more of that for you over the course of the day. Andy McEwen here in the commentary box, delighted to be joined after a few years since we last worked together. David Addison. David, looking forward to the day, I'm sure.
Absolutely, because Oulton Park, Andy, as you know, is a fantastic circuit, and it's a home circuit for both of us, isn't it? The Northwest's jewel in the motorsport crown. GT cars around here do always look absolutely fantastic, and as Andy was saying, there are parts of the circuit where they can stretch their legs. There'll be quite a lot of leg stretching up and down the pit lane as well for our intrepid and increasingly warm in his fire suit reporter. Let's check in and say good morning to Bryn Lucas.
Not that you want to know, but the situation is drippy here at the moment. It's very early, but the temperature is building and building and building. Now, just want to point out the car behind, too. Blake Anglis just here. He'll be going in the car after Revy has taken it for a shakedown. The reason they're taking it for a shakedown is that is actually the McLaren Trophy car. That's an Artura from the McLaren Trophy. It's a paddock car, and that car is there because Revy decided to bin it off in testing last week, or the actual car they normally drive at Mahiki. So they brought in the paddock car from the Artura Trophy, from the McLaren Trophy. It's had quite a lot of components switched out, including an engine overnight. So they're taking it for a proper shakedown, the 84, see how it goes. And Blake says he'll get in it after about 5 minutes or so and give it a proper shakedown after Revy has taken it for a spin. So lots going on with the 84.
Bryn, thank you very much. That's Drippy Lucas, as he's now dubbed in the pit lane. Mahiki, as you say, with an engine change, they also are going to have to start from the pit lane because of an infringement by using the wrong set of tyres in the qualifying session. So late on Saturday, time's disallowed. The car will start, therefore, from the pit, but then an engine change, and it is another potential penalty because you shouldn't be changing the engine during the event. If you do, you should get a grid drop.
Yes, except they're starting at the back anyway, so
an in-race penlosy might be the
more
solution.
Likely. Yes, I think you're right. So, and that's not what you need around here. It's a circuit at which it's notoriously difficult to overtake, of course, so the drivers tell us. So losing track position, however that happens, is not ideal. One car that will be hoping to hold on to its track position at the start of both races, actually, is the Beechdean Motorsport Aston Martin, which in both of the GT3 parts of qualifying on Saturday, David, was absolutely rapid, whether in the hands of Andrew Howard or Ross Gunn. It was the car to beat.
Yeah, and people are trying to scratch their heads as to when Andrew Howard's last pole position was. Not with a combined time, but on sheer pace. You've got to go back a long way, if at all, if it has ever happened. His last win was 2015. Yeah. So it's been a long time. It's great to see Andrew going so well. And Ross Gunn, who's never won a British GT race, he was his co-driver, desperately wants to change that as well. So, in the morning sunshine, we are nudging towards 9:15 here at Oulton Park. The teams, after a day off yesterday, because the timetable, as ever, is that you have Saturday and Bank Holiday Monday, and then a day to go to Chester Zoo or watch touring cars on TV or whatever it is you do on the Sunday. Now the team's back in action, and the cars with a green light at the end of the pit lane are released, headed out by the championship-leading number 44 BMW, Jonathan Beeson and Charles Clark. They didn't win at Silverstone in the only other previous event we've had this year, but they were the first point-scoring car home.
Indeed so they arrive here with that narrow championship advantage, but will also have extra time to be served in the pit lane in that first race. Remember, we have compensation time to be served across both races. If you finish in the podium positions in any of your classes, then you will be having to spend longer in the pit lane at the mandatory stop, which will come partway through the race. Race 1 coming up later this morning will be started in any Pro-Am entry anyway by the AM drivers before the pros jump in after the pit stops, and then we reverse that cycle for the second race later on today.
Now that's a car that desperately needs some points this weekend, isn't it? Kevin Say and Ben Green were out on the first lap of 3 hours of racing at Silverstone. It was an awful day out for 2Cs Motorsport, the Anglo-Bahraini team, and Kevin Say's car here coming through Britain's. I noticed Oulton Park, a bit like Snetterton, where I've been for the last couple of days, has got these new sort of extra tarmacy curve areas behind the curve to try and deter people from corner cutting. Didn't do much for Ginetta Juniors the other day, I noticed, but it might deter people in a GT3 car.
Yes, they did seem to be respecting those curbs quite well in qualifying, I'd say, the British GT drivers, because you just can't be hammering a GT car over those curbs repeatedly. They're very strong these days. Reliability is nothing like as significant a factor as it was back in the day, but if you really start hitting those curbs, you can damage splitters, suspension, wheels can be damaged, as can tyres, so they're going to have to manage that. And I think tyres, David, will be a talking point as we move through the day. I know this isn't as hot as these tyres are capable of running in, but it is warmer than we're used to here at Oulton Park, and I think even based on what we saw on Saturday, some teams have dialed the cars in around those conditions better than others. And
it's a busy lap as well, isn't it? So yes, you're right about the temperature, plus you're constantly working left or right. Andrew Howard then heading up towards the timing line, or Andrew Howard's car, which goes through. It is Andrew at the wheel of it. You've got Charles Clark having come back into the pit lane, Ben Barnicoat likewise. This is the view then coming out of Old Hall Corner down towards the kink at Denton's. Oulton Park has not shrunk over the years, but it does look narrow these days in a big GT3 car. The Foster's loop to the right. This is the left-hander of Cascades. Speed building along Lakeside Straight, at the end of which there is number 63 Lamborghini. That's the Rob Collard car. And local driver Hugo Cook, his co-driver from Northwich, which is about 10 miles down the road, if that.
Indeed so. Lamborghinis have traditionally gone well here at Oulton Park. Rob traditionally goes well here at Oulton Park. He's won a race here the last 2 years that he's competed in the championship at Oulton. It went well here in his touring car career as well, I seem to recall. So it's a circuit that suits him, and they qualified reasonably well for the 2 races as well. Hugo was 3rd fastest in his session. Rob was 2nd fastest in his, so he will actually start from the front row alongside Andrew Howard. That could be a feisty battle into turn 1, couldn't it? Andrew Howard versus Rob Collard is a fight I would gladly buy a ticket for. There is Hugo watching on in the garage area. But yes, the Lamborghinis, the mid-engine cars, always seem to like this kind of circuit, don't they?
The last 8 races, though, have been won from pole around here. So you're right, it is going to be a feisty fight, because you've got to do a lot of the hard work down to turn 1, especially if you've not been that fastest qualifier. Hugo Cook then watching what's going on. Let's distract him for a moment. And Bryn Lucas is down there to have a word with him.
Yeah, thanks, Adders. Hugo, last time out of Silverstone, it was not a great start to the season for yourself and Rob, so the work has to start here, and you start in a good position.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't ideal, especially for the position we were in at Silverstone, but we're in a good position for both races today, so I'm hoping we can either stay where we are or go forward.
What do you take from last season? What have you learned from 2025 that you can bring into this season, yourself and Rob working alongside each other?
I think it's just like understanding the car, the team, you know, how Rob likes the car, how we want to work together. So it's all little things together, but it's just, you know, I'm always getting better as a driver, you know, the more I do. So it's just everything combined.
And lastly, it's baking hot here already, and it's only, what, 20 past 9 in the morning. Temperature's going to soar. How do you deal with that inside the car when the temperatures inside go astronomically high?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really hot today, but stay hydrated. And to be honest, when you're in the car, you're just focused, and it's not too bad. And you've got the vents, so you get a bit of breeze through. It's more when you stop and sit there. It gets quite hot, but it should be fine.
There you go, Adders. No sympathy at all for Hugo or any of the other drivers. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryn. Yeah, so interesting to hear from Hugo there, and already talking about the temperatures, because as much as we're complaining, which we shouldn't be really, about the warm conditions on Bank Holiday Monday, for the drivers, it's extraordinarily hot inside the cars. They'll be quite grateful, I think, that these are only 60-minute races, which means they're give or take 30-minute stints for the drivers. Any longer than that, and I think some would struggle.
Yes, the only negative is if you're the start driver, and they will have to be for at least one race, because that's when the heat starts to come. You get togged up, crash helmet on, overalls on, you're in the car, you drive around to the grid, and then you wait. And that's where the heat really does start to hit you. And, of course, as soon as you pit, but then you jump out of the car, so it's not going to be a problem for terribly long. Number 24, BMW, one of the cars in GT4, 10th in class, and that is the Century BMW of Jack Collins and Brandon Templeton. Templeton's car, as I say, 10th overall, but it's Jack Collins at the wheel. This is a replay of just how hard you've got to attack the curb in a GT4 car. That's down at Britain's. And every little inch shaved off the length of the lap all helps in terms of lap time as well. That floppy marker is in for a bad day.
Yes, certainly in some of the races that we saw on Saturday, it didn't last long. I've not say many times it survived beyond the first lap, so we'll see whether our British GT drivers are kinder to it once racing commences later on. But yes, the 24 car, Chomp, as it's known within the team, I believe. You can figure out why, I'm sure, if you take a look at the livery at the front of the car. Was pretty quick, certainly in the first part of qualifying yesterday. Jack Collins, who's in the car now, was second fastest in the first GT4 qualifying session. Will start on the front row alongside the Innovation Racing Ginetta of Hadley Simpson, which, of course, Innovation were the team to beat at Silverstone, and they've continued that pace into Oulton Park.
And then number 27, Aston Martin, which is the Grange Racing with FSR car. Dan Lavery, the team owner, and Darren Turner sharing that. Stan at the wheel of it at the moment, just getting more mileage. So often in these warm-up sessions, pro driver might just do one lap just to make sure all is well, but then give the bulk of the mileage to the AM. Fastest at the moment, though, is aboard number 15 Mercedes, Aaron Walker, sharing with Ian Loggy. That car that wasn't at Silverstone, but it's good to have it on the grid this weekend. Aaron Walker, very competitive GT racer, but not seen much of in British GT, but quicker than Matt Griffin. And then you've got Jack Brown rounding out the top three, Rob Collard fourth, with still about 7.5 minutes to go. Two races as ever to look forward to, GT3 battles and GT4. And you can see now there are going to be some driver changes as the Colin Turkington, Ernie Graham BMW owes us a pit stop. And Colin Turkington standing by. WSR have had quite a good weekend with a race to pole win and a championship race win in the British Touring Car Championship. They arrived en masse at Snetterton yesterday, team manager Carl Mitchell and the mechanics who had been here on Saturday. And in answer to the question, did you have a good journey? It was yes, we used Ernie Graham's private plane.
There are worse ways to get about, aren't there?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, fascinated to see how that pairing get on as they go through the season. I know Colin is working really closely with Ernie to try and get him up to speed. Colin, we know, is an extremely talented driver, but limited in his endurance and GT racing experience, having, of course, had most of his success in the British Touring Car Championship. So a really interesting dynamic between those two. And there is the WSR prepared car with driver change ongoing. Colin's going to jump in, I think, for the final couple of laps of the session, just to dial the car in. Ernie's got his eye in, and now Colin will see potentially if there are any last-minute setup changes that need to be made. It's not a massive wait between the end of this session and the start of the first race. Just at past 11 o'clock is the start of race number 1, so track conditions should be similar. So anything they can learn in the second half of this session could be valuable. Absolutely right.
Ernie Graham, very successful rally driver, strapped Colin Turkington in. They shared his historic race BMWs in the past. That's how the link has come together for modern endurance racing, shared cars. 44 BMW then, pressing on. Jonathan Beeson up from Carrera Cup GB, sharing the car with Charles Clark, who has also been a former Porsche racer. That's another car taking a big bite of curb down towards Britain's. The BMW M4, mighty looking car, and behind you can see is the Aston Martin, which is of Will Oulton, running in GT4, and that I think was locking up a little bit coming down towards the Hislop chicane.
Yeah, just carried a bit too much speed into the right-hand element, didn't he? And you've got to be careful doing that. There's a tyre stack waiting for you on the apex of the left-hand part of the chicane, and indeed the inside at Knickerbrook Corner, and we've seen that come into play over the years a few times. If you do start snagging wheels on the tyres, they can do quite a bit of damage, and that's the last thing you want in this morning warm-up session. Yes, the drivers want a bit of track time, they want to maybe dial the setup in, but this is not the time to be pushing for purple sectors and fastest laps, because, as I said, they've got less than 2 hours after this session to prepare the cars for race number 1, so the drivers need to be as risk-averse as they possibly can.
There is number 74, Ginetta then. Hadley Simpson at the wheel, as Andy was rightly saying. That was the car that won GT4 at Silverstone. It looks as though Hadley's going to go for the pit lane. Yes, he is. mandatory pit stops, of course, when we get to the races with staggered windows, so not everybody comes in all at once. So the GT3 cars are after 22 minutes and the GT4 after 28. There's a bit of an overlap, but they are slightly staggered. Also in GT4 is the Ginetta. There you can see that Jack Mitchell shares with Luke Shaw. Jack took 3 days to get here. That's because he ran it. It's about 116 miles, and he's running to every venue in the UK. For some reason, he's decided not to run to Spa. But it's a fair effort, this, raising money for charity. We'll talk more about it when we get to the first race, no doubt. But it's a mammoth effort from Jack Mitchell. There's the requirement that you have for the race, an hour with the staggered pit stops and different pit stop times as well. Quicker, 70 seconds for GT3, 100 seconds for GT4, and then longer again if you're a silver GT4 entrant.
Yes, which is an adjustment, isn't it? Because traditionally those Silver Cup entrants had carried extra ballast within GT4 to account for the fact that a Silver-Silver driver combo, in theory, is quicker than a Pro-Am combo over a race distance, but they've adjusted that now so that they have their own separate compensation time within the class. That will be significant when we get into the races. Remember, it's a Silver Cup car that's on pole in GT4 for race number 1, but not for race 2. So race 1 could be their opportunity to shine. Certainly looked as though the Ginettas were shining, though, weren't they, in qualifying yesterday? It was all Aston Martin in GT3, but in GT4, Ginetta on pole position for both races. Innovation, as we said, taking the pole for race 1, and yeah, the Toro Verde car in the hands of Jack Mitchell, fastest in the final part of qualifying. As here the 2Cs Mercedes negotiates the Shell hairpin and heads down towards the Britain's chicane. And who is on board the 18 car? It is at the moment Ben Green, who has done a bit of racing over in Germany in recent years, and winner at the Nürburgring a couple of years ago. Ben Green, very rapid driver, and he's got himself a little bit of traffic here, which actually in this session is not a bad thing. This is some good learning that can be done. How is the car handling in traffic? Not only that, but keeping an eye on things like engine temperatures, brake temperatures. They're all going to climb if you're running in the hot exhaust fumes of the cars ahead. He almost trips over the BMW there at Druids. The SRO Motorsports GT4 machine was sort of hovering towards the apex, and Ben wasn't quite sure whether to commit or not.
Yeah, and as we said early on, the last thing that needs is more damage and a points-free day. Ben Green, much underrated driver, but very, very rapid, especially as you've been saying in European events and Asia as well. He's been very rapid in GT World Challenge Asia of late. That's Aaron Walker, or the car of Aaron Walker. He's now given it back to Ian Loggy. Ben Green's gone to the top of the times, perhaps not exactly unexpected when you put a gun driver in it. And as the last couple of minutes are getting underway, there's still quite a lot of work going on in the pit lane. Let's get down to Bryn Lucas once more. Bryn, what are they doing in the pits?
I frequently ask that question, but Morgan Tilbrook's just come in the 77, the Optimum car, as you can see. Ben Barnicoat's getting in the car right now. He'll go out, he'll do 1, maybe 2 laps, then come back in, and rather than Morgan Tilbrook get out of his race gear, he'll stay all lidded up and everything like that, and then they'll do 1 more driver change, 1 more practice driver change to close out the session. So all the teams, all the drivers, bar none, I think, have got their crash helmets on, their hands devices on, and they're going to do 1 more driver swap to the very, very end of this session.
Doesn't it? Spend as many opportunities as you can honing things, so that when the car comes down the pit lane after the checkered flag, the session's not over, but as you can still, as Bryn was saying, do that driver change or a tyre change just for further practice. Back on track goes then the McLaren of Ben Barnicoat, there number 8, the GT4 Cayman. Ian Duggan sharing with Tom Bradshaw, last year's Cayman champion in Porsche Sprint Challenge. And it's Ian Duggan behind the wheel of the car that runs in that old pseudo works livery from the early 80s, the tobacco colour scheme.
Indeed so. One car hasn't set a time, but has done plenty of laps, and that's the 21 MK Racing Aston Martin of Will Oulton and Jessica Hawkins. They were rapid in qualifying yesterday as well, getting themselves a pair of top 3 starting positions. They've not done a lap, but I would hazard a guess they've been in and out of the pit lane practicing those driver changes, because although you have a minimum pit stop time that you must adhere to in British GT, as is often the case these days in other similar series, you still can't afford too much of a fumble, can you? It's quite easy to run out of time, even though you have that minimum time to aim for. So plenty of practice to be done, and they're focusing very much on that in this morning warm-up session, as Josh Buchan is focusing on trying to set a bit of a headline-grabbing time towards the conclusion of the session, David.
Yeah, Josh Buchan matching the absolute best in the first sector, but then traffic getting in the way. It's the number 21 Aston you were talking about, Jessica Hawkins' car. Josh Buchan we're looking at in that Ferrari, the winner of the gear race at Macau last year in touring cars, in TCR spec touring cars, so learning about totally new circuits, totally different feel of race car, the art of sharing a car as well. Everything is new for Josh Buchan, and he's going to bail. The checkered flag is out, but he's going to take the flag in the pit lane, although the Aston of Jessica Hawkins carries on, hopefully to do a first lap time, which it does, and actually goes 20th out of the 24 that we have had in this session. So Ben Green's time, a 1 minute 34.030 done at the end of the session for him, and he has yet to take the checkered flag, but I don't think he's going to go any quicker on the next lap if he even completes it. Others that have taken the flag now have a slower in-lap under cloudless skies here at Oulton Park, and it's going to get very busy, I'm sure, over the course of the day.
Yes, as someone who spent much of my youth coming to Oulton Park to watch this bank holiday event, admittedly it was an earlier bank holiday traditionally, but there weren't many times I went home with a suntan at the end of the British GT event, so really, really nice to see the conditions, and I'm sure a big crowd. They were pouring into the circuit even when I got here at around 8 AM earlier on this morning, so a big crowd on hand, and hopefully a pair of exciting races for them to enjoy, as well as perhaps a few ice creams in the sunshine.
Now you're talking. That's the Blake Anglis Raven Lake McLaren that Bryn was touching on earlier on in the session. In other words, the car has had a new engine. It is a replacement McLaren borrowed from Paddock because of an accident that befell their Silverstone example. It's come out of the McLaren Trophy, made into a GT4 racer for the weekend, but with this engine change it will have some sort of penalty. We await confirmation because that is again outside of the regulations. So the car's in the pit lane, put on the stilts and the dollies, rotated into the garages, and for many of the teams now just a chance to look at the data and make sure that all is well in anticipation of our first of the two 1 hour races here. The Optimum McLaren of Mark Warren and Jack Brown coming towards you down the pit lane. Josh Stanton's McLaren sits closest. Ben Barnicoat, number 77, down the pit road, as their number 97 Aston Martin, which is the Ronan Pearson John Hartshorn car. John Hartshorn at the wheel of it. John, the oldest driver on the grid at 69, that makes its way up towards Shell.
Indeed it does. So, morning warm-up complete, no major dramas, which is fantastic to see. And within GT3, it was the number 18 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes in the hands of Ben Green that set the fastest time, and therefore fastest in Pro-Am as well. Century's 44 BMW was the Silver Am fastest car, and they were second quickest in the session, ahead of the Barwell number 63 Lamborghini, the Rodin Motorsport Ferrari fourth, and Paddock Motorsports Martin Plowman and Mark Smith McLaren, making it 5 different manufacturers in the top 5 positions. Then another McLaren for Orange Racing ahead of Barwell's second Lamborghini, with the second 2Cs car 8th. Barwell's 55 car was 9th, and the Optimum at McLaren in 10th. In GT4 land, it was the Grange Racing by FSR car in the hands, I suspect, of Darren Turner that set the fastest time. Car 27, quickest by about half a second over the 24 Century BMW, which will start second on the grid for race 1. Colin Turkington and Ernie Graham's WSR Flexifly BMW was 3rd, ahead of Townsend Racing, powered by Fox Motorsport, number 40 and 4th, and the GBR Stratton Aston Martin, 5th quickest in GT4. So a competitive morning warm-up session, a drama-free morning warm-up session. Bryn Lucas has one more update from reporters though in the pit lane. I think he's catching up with Will Oulton.
Yeah, I am, but we're having to make way for an Aston Martin that's been wheeled back into the garage. But Will, it's been a really good start to the season for yourself and Jessica, and it looks like a really good start for here as well, because you're perfectly poised for some decent results.
Yeah, 2 very strong starting positions. I think we're in a good place. The car feels in a nice window. We've put a lot of work into it, before the start of round 1. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. Bank holiday at Oulton Park doesn't get much better than that.
Bank holiday in the sunshine and the camera about a foot from your nose. Good luck to you. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bryn, thanks very much. So Will Oulton will be a man to watch in that GT4 battle. Right, fans are getting ready not just for GT action, but also for a busy day of racing here, because we have single-seaters, we've got Ginettas, and also a really mixed bag from the Classic Sports Car Club. So the fastest car in the warm-up, the Mercedes AMG from the 2Cs team of the English driver Ben Green and Macau's Kevin Say. Race 1 then is going to be starting at 11:05. We'll be on air from 10:50 with the build-up. I'll have a word with some of the drivers on the grid as the first sprint race of the British GT season is ready to get underway. We'll see you in about an hour and a half or so. For now, goodbye from Oulton Park.